In this video, I'm going to show you how to nail the focus in any situation when recording video using the powerful Sony A7C. Hey guys, it's Jay from Sony Alpha Lab, and my goal here is to help you use your Sony camera better and also to review gear so you can see what it can do for you in the real world. Now, if you're new to my channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and below the video in the description area, you will find links to anything that I talked about in the video, as well as recommended accessories for the Sony A7C. So when it comes to mastering autofocus for video with the Sony A7C, there are 4 key features that you're going to need to understand, and that's what I'm going to go over in this video. So the first key feature is going to be focus area and focus tracking. So I'm going to show you how to use that and what those features do. Feature number 2 is the facial recognition technology, and you're going to want to turn that feature on and off depending on what you're doing, and I will illustrate that for you in a moment. Feature number 3 is transition speed, and feature number 4 is going to be the autofocus subject shift sensitivity. So after I cover those features, I'm going to give you a bonus pro tip that's really going to help you streamline your autofocus settings for video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. All right guys, let's just get right into it. Okay, so autofocus area. Now what that is where you're allowing the camera to focus. So when you have the focus area set to wide mode, it's going to use pretty much the entire sensor. It's about 93% or whatever it is of the sensor, but pretty much the whole screen. So by default, the camera is going to focus on what's closest to the camera unless there's a face in the scene. If there's a face in the scene, by default, it's going to prioritize the face and not focus on what's closest to the camera if there's a face in the scene. So that's basically how it works by default. Now, focus area you can change. You can restrict the focus area to quadrants on the screen. So I could have the focus point set right here. I can have it set right here. I can have it set for like this area, which is where I have it set right now using zone focus. But you can also touch the screen, and that will override whatever focus settings you have by default, and then it'll just focus on the area where you touched. When you take the A7C out of the box and you touch the screen, that's automatically going to default to touch tracking. Now you can change that from touch tracking to touch focus depending on what you want. Touch tracking is great though. I recommend leaving it there, and you can pretty much just touch the screen wherever you want, and it's going to track whatever you touch, whether it's a Lego car like you see here, or it could be anything else in the scene. It could be, whatever. It could be a bird, a dog, anything like that. That's what focus area does. It basically restricts the area that the camera will concentrate on when acquiring autofocus. Another cool thing about the autofocus area is you can do transitions. You can touch one part of the screen and then touch another part of the screen, and the autofocus will automatically switch to the other focus point that you just touched. And that's just a very powerful feature. And what you're doing is you're changing the focus area. That's really what you're doing. You're changing the focus area from one part of the screen to another part of the screen. And if you go through the focus area menu, you'll see there's a variety of options there for you to choose from. Now, some of them, like expandable flexible spot, that will default to your touch focus. If you poke around the screen when in that mode, your touch focus will just move. Your expandable flexible spot will move around the screen as you touch. But if you have touch tracking enabled and you touch around the screen, that will default to the tracking box, which you can see here. All right, so the second feature you need to be aware of is the facial recognition technology. Now you can turn that on and off. Now, why would you want to turn that off? Well, let me show you why. If I hold this up, if this is a product I'm reviewing, for example, and I want the camera to focus on it, it's not going to because my face is in the scene. So I have to cover my face like this. If I cover my face, it will switch focus, as you can see there. But if I have my face in the scene, it's going to prioritize the face, and it's going to focus on my face. So if you turn that feature off, it will then operate where whatever's closest to the camera, it will become priority. So watch this. I'm going to turn the facial recognition off, and then when I hold this up, it's just going to focus on this. Watch. So now when I hold this up, it's going to automatically focus on the remote control as opposed to my face. See that? Even though my face is in the scene, it's still focusing on the remote. It's not switching back to my face, as you can see here. Now, obviously, if I pull that away, it will switch back to my face. All right, so the Sony A7C can track the eye and the face, so it's extremely accurate autofocus when recording video. I highly recommend you turn on the feature in the menu where it'll actually show you the box where it's tracking the face and the eye. It's called the face eye frame display. By default, that's turned off. When you have that turned on, you can actually see there's like a little square box that'll be over the eye and then a box that goes around the face. And it's much easier to see, like if you're the one filming, that the camera is actually tracking your subject that you want. So I recommend turning that feature on in the menu system. So the next thing I want to go over is transition speed. Now, transition speed is how fast the autofocus will switch from one subject to the other once the autofocus is acquired. So for example, once the camera decides that it's going to focus on this remote control, how long the transition takes. So watch when I pull the remote down. See the time it takes to focus on my face? That is the autofocus transition speed. Now you can speed that up or you can slow that down. So as you can see here, I have the autofocus transition speed set to slow, and you can see just how long it takes to switch from the one Lego car to the other. And then you can see here, now that I have it set to fast, just how quickly the autofocus transition speed is. Now, why you would want to change that? If you are tracking a high-speed moving subject or just a moving subject in general, you're going to want the autofocus transition speed a little bit faster, because the subject's moving, so you're going to want the transition speed to keep up. If your subject moves away from the camera or gets closer to the camera, you're going to want it to keep up. You know, if your subject does something like this, and that focus transition speed is what's going to allow the camera to track at that speed. If you have it set to slow and you move suddenly, it's going to take a second for it to catch up. And that's really what that feature's for. And the Sony A7C offers 7 steps of speed variance, which is awesome. Be sure to play around with that and you'll see exactly what I mean. You want that really cool cinematic look, slow that transition speed down and you'll get those really nice slow transitions, which, you know, make for a more cinematic look. All right, so the next feature I want to go over is AF subject shift sensitivity. Remember when I was just holding this up? You see how long it's taking to switch to this remote? That's what that feature will do. So right now I have it set to, I think it's level 3 or 4. All right, so now I have the AF subject shift sensitivity set to 1, which is locked on. So it's gonna really prioritize my face. So when I hold something up in front of the camera, it's gonna take a little while to change because the priority is set to locked on. It's really, see how hard it is? It just doesn't wanna shift because it's holding that focus. It's like catching my sweater here, and it just doesn't want to change on the remote, even though I'm covering my face and everything. That's because I have it set to locked on. And that feature works really well if you're doing something like this and you don't want the focus to change, even though you're waving your hands in front of the screen. Like I talk with my hands a lot. So this would be a good feature if you don't want it to focus on my hands when I'm talking and, you know, blah, blah, blah. That would be a good way to go. And also, if you're tracking moving subjects and you don't want the focus to shift from one subject to another, you would want to leave it on locked on like it is now. So let me switch it to the other option and I'll show you the difference. All right, so now I have it set to responsive. So watch what happens now when I hold this up. You see how it instantly changes? So that's the difference between having it locked on, where it really doesn't want to change, and then responsive, where it's just going to immediately change to whatever you put up in front. Now this is, again, great for product photography. If you're holding, you know, reviewing something or whatever you're doing, you're showing off food and you want it to switch focus quickly, this is a good way to go. And again, between using facial recognition technology and this feature, that will really determine how quickly your focus changes. And if there's a face in the scene, of course, it's gonna prioritize my face no matter what you have the sensitivity set to. So that's why I turned that feature off for this demonstration. So now if you hold this up, it's gonna prioritize what's in front of the camera as long as it's within the focus area you have selected. And right now I'm using zone focus, which is basically about this much. That's about that much of the screen, right about there in the center. That's like the zone that I have right now. So if I hold something out here, it's not going to focus on it because it's not within the zone. But if I come here, now it's switching because I'm within the zone of focus. And that's my focus area that I covered in number 1. All right, so now it's time for that bonus pro tip I promised you. So what you're gonna wanna do is, you're gonna wanna go into the menu system and you're gonna customize your function menu. And you can do that here. So just click on the function menu and then go down to the movie settings, like when you're recording movies, and then you can configure what's inside your function menu. So check it out. In my function menu, I have the facial recognition feature. So I can turn that on and off just by hitting the function menu. I can get right in there and turn that off. I also have autofocus transition speed, and I also have the autofocus shift sensitivity feature in the function menu. So I can easily change those features just by hitting the FN button and then go in there, turn them on and off, or adjust them as needed. And that's super convenient as opposed to going through the menu system, which is really kind of complicated and arduous depending on what you're looking for. I highly recommend putting them in your function menu, and that'll drastically speed up your workflow when it comes to manipulating autofocus settings when recording video. All right, guys, be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you felt like it was helpful. And if you're not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. And if you just got the Sony A7C and you're looking for a killer beginner's guide, well then click right here. That's the guide for you. Now, if you already know how to use cameras and you're looking for a little bit more advanced guide on features like aperture priority mode, shutter priority mode, and manual mode and bulb mode, then you're gonna wanna hit that video here. I'll catch up with you guys next time. Take care.